and I'm going to hand over to the fantastic Ian, who is all things Gloucestershire, man of many talents, Business West, champion of business, etc. Is that about right? That'll do? Very good. Thank you very much. Over to Ian.
Good morning. You've already had I think, quite an inspirational session this morning. There's going to be some sort of crossover, obviously, in what we're going to be talking about today. The first thing I want to do is to introduce the panel, which has changed quite rapidly, sort of every hour. And we'll go from Richard Stanley. Richard is leader of Tewkesbury.
Good morning, everybody. Richard Stanley, leader at Tewkesbury.
Ros Savage, who's MP for South Gloucestershire.
South Cotswolds, actually. Good morning.
And we're here at Patch, what a great place. And Paloma Strelitz. Paloma is the creative director here. We're very lucky to have this place. I think it bodes very well for the whole future of Gloucestershire.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sir Geoffrey Clifton-Bown. We all know Sir Geoffrey. He seems to have been an MP for ever and a day, but always effective. Geoffrey, thank you.
It's very nice to be here, Ian, and good to see you all. Some of you I've already seen, but those I haven't, welcome. Nice to see you.
Jack Kidder. Jack is in charge of social value for Henry Boot. This is an operation that is so important to Gloucestershire with the Golden Valley. Adam Vines. Adam is one of the guys who has developed Together Gloucestershire over the last few years. A great operator, big Chamber of Commerce man for Cirencester. And I thought what we'd do is to get him to quickly give us a short summation of what Together Gloucestershire is.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Ian. I'd probably start with a simple question, if that's okay. How many times have you heard someone say, I'd love to buy local, but I don't know who's out there? And that single sentence is why Together Gloucestershire exists. Because we make it easier for all organisations, no matter the size within the county, to buy locally, which strengthens our economy and our communities and our supply chains. So to give you a very, very quick overview, Together Gloucestershire is a not-for-profit, purely run by volunteers. We've all got day jobs. We've been going 4 years now, which is incredible, and we've slowly been building momentum. So in June last year, we launched our database portal. So that is for procurement teams to actually find those good local suppliers, which is essentially our mission. But we've also run Meet the Buyer events, and we're also working on some educational systems as well. So the real need for it is prevalent at the moment, because Gloucestershire is in a lot of investment coming in, and a lot of infrastructure projects like Golden Valley. So we're there just to make those connections possible. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Sort of one big question I want to take all the panel through. And if you have questions, let's try and be a bit like question time. Raise your hand. Andy will come with a mic, and we'll do that all the way through. So I want to start at this end with Richard. This is the question for everyone. Why does keeping more procurement spend within Gloucestershire matter right now? And right now, to me, means as of yesterday, we have one unitary in a couple of years' time. I think that will bode well for business. Richard.
Thanks, Ian. Well, I mean, it's a no-brainer, isn't it, really? I mean, Gloucestershire as a county is now one of the largest economies in the southwest. Some might argue we're not in the southwest, we're in the Midlands, but wherever we are, we're one of the largest economies. So there's huge amount of growth and huge amount of potential in our county, but it's just tapping into that so that all businesses feel the benefit of it. But we're an economy made up of small and medium enterprises. I think we're about 98 or 99% of our economy is SMEs. So it's just about making sure that those SMEs don't feel locked out, and that we're making it a default that we try where possible to procure locally. And I think local authorities, the new unitary council, and even down to our parish councils, there's a role for all of us to play in making sure that our SMEs are included in that.
You've got enormous growth in Tewkesbury, haven't you? What are you doing for business that is new?
I don't know if what we're doing is new or just doing what works and keep doing it. But planning has been mentioned a lot today, and it's about making sure that we were investing in our planning department, and we have done, and we're actually won awards now for the transformation that's happened within planning to make that as straightforward as possible, so that we are business friendly. Sometimes, admittedly, don't always get the memo. So if you're having those challenges, then please do raise them. You're very welcome to raise them directly with me as leader or with our CEO. But it's also around things like our business voice events that we hold. So we hold those regularly. We've done a series of those. And again, that's that two-way conversation so that business can come and talk to us directly, that we don't feel distant. I could probably go on, but lots of great things going on in Tewkesbury.
What about the idea of an aerospace cluster and a specialist engineering cluster in Tewkesbury?
Yeah, and just to say Tewkesbury Borough is huge. It's not just Tewkesbury Town, and obviously it goes all the way down to Gloucestershire Airport. We've got that M5 growth corridor, and actually most of the growth from Cheltenham and Gloucester is actually happening in Tewkesbury Borough, and the airport is a really important ingredient in that. I think it's got a huge potential to be a massive aerospace and advanced engineering manufacturing hub. And we talked about Junction 9A earlier, and actually there's 120 hectares of employment land could be opened up if we get 9A across the line. And we've got companies like Moog, we've got GE, we've got Safran, all within Tewkesbury Borough. The growth potential and the importance for the defence sector can't be underestimated. So I'm a big champion of Gloucestershire Airport, and the opportunity that's there is immense and could actually transform our economy even more.
Junction 9, is that a dead duck now?
As far as I'm concerned, it's not a dead duck. No decision's been made. I know there was some stories over the weekend. I'd just say don't believe everything you read in the press.
Why not?
Sorry, Ian, no offence. I would say, yes, the sound music from government doesn't sound great, but I think we just need to lobby harder. Actually, defence is important, and it's great that government want to invest in that, but let's not do it at the expense of the defence sector. And 9A is about actually allowing our defence sector to grow. So they need to find the money for that as well, as far as I'm concerned.
Now, you were a big supporter of One Unitary, weren't you?
I was indeed, yeah. Lone supporter at one point, but yeah, big supporter. I think the single unitary is absolutely the best option. Listen, I'm really proud to represent Tewkesbury Borough Council and to be the leader of it. So there's no one more gutted than I that it's going, but government made the decision that it was going. What we didn't want to then do is add costly disruption of ripping in half our county, and I'm relieved that we're not doing that. And I actually think Gloucestershire, we have a real fortunate position now. So many of our neighbours have been split in half, and we're actually going to be a really big player. I think that'll put us in a really strong position for the mayoral areas as well, whether we look to Wecker or whether we look to Herefordshire and Worcestershire. Gloucestershire is actually going to be a massive voice. So I think it's about making sure that we're not shy about that, and we really fight for the investment that Gloucestershire needs.
Yeah. What about a commitment today to Together Gloucestershire? What are you prepared to tell them today?
What do you want to hear? I mean, I'm happy to work and do whatever we
politician.
can. I think Together Gloucestershire is a fantastic idea. I was thinking on sort of the way over, even just down to like recently, one of the parish councils, I'm a parish councillor as well, and one of the parish councils I sit on had a decision to make around its cleaning procurement, and the office clerks wanted to go with a non-local company because they'd filled the forms in better. But they'd filled the forms in better because they were a national company, and we had a local cleaning firm that could actually have done just as good a job. And the councillors said, what are we doing? And we went with the local firm. And I think it's just about making sure that we're thinking about what's really important, and it is about those local jobs. Of course, we need to compete. We want to be attracting investment, so we don't want others to necessarily continually buy buy local because we want to get in on those contracts too. But I think, you know, where it's for our SMEs, we need to support them.
Thank you. Ros, same question. Why does keeping more procurement spend within Gloucestershire matter right now? And just to mention this, that research suggests that increasing local procurement by just 5% could actually retain up to 550 million annually in the county, which is big sums, aren't they?
Absolutely. Yeah, there's a really huge opportunity right now. As you say, as of yesterday, we know that we're having one unitary, and as of Monday, we'll have a new Prime Minister who's talking a lot about devolution. And let's hope that this time the leader of the country actually means it, because we've had Pride in Place. Before that, we had Levelling Up, and it never really seemed to happen. So I hope that our new Prime Minister will actually walk the talk of that, because looking at other parts of the country where they really have promoted local procurement, it's been a massive force multiplier. The Preston model has been going for several decades now and is often held up as an exemplar of what's possible. And just looking at the figures here, in Preston, local procurement by their anchor institutions, those sort of core public institutions like hospitals, schools, prisons, increased by from 5% to 18%, which they reckoned added up to an additional £74 million just within one city. So it is a proven model, and I'm very grateful to Together Gloucestershire for promoting that ethos here, because not only does it make sense economically, but also when we look at potential future shocks to the system, be they geopolitical, economic, climate, technological, social, it just makes the country more resilient as well as more prosperous to buy locally.
Yeah. What would be your priorities in your constituency for Together Gloucestershire? What sort of thoughts have you got?
Well, I represent a large and fairly rural constituency with a lot of very disgruntled farmers in it. Also, last night I went to see the film Cotswold Field and Folk, which I highly recommend as a very vivid portrayal of the beauty, but also the challenges of our natural landscapes, and in particular the challenges facing our farmers, which is a really interesting juxtaposition with the national emergency briefing. Has anybody here seen the national emergency briefing, either when it happened last November or a screening since? Good, seeing a few hands going up. It's a really big wake-up call on how climate change is going to affect our future food supply. And we can't look to our European cousins to help us out. Just driving here from home today across these parched brown landscapes, and it's only mid-July, we are already seeing those impacts of climate change. And so food security, which also impacts on, it's a form of national security, is absolutely top of my mind at the moment. So I keep calling on the government to do more to support farmers, especially the smaller farmers, and also to encourage more food growing everywhere in community gardens, in schools, so we've got a more resilient food system.
What are you hoping that Andy Burnham is going to do for the farmers?
Be nice to them. The farmers I've talked with, and I've talked with many, really want to grow food, and they want to be good stewards of our landscape and of our natural heritage. But they're not charities. A lot of them are really, really struggling. They may be land rich, but they are cash poor. And so they can't do these things just out of the kindness of their hearts. They do need to have the financial incentives, and also to know that those financial incentives are going to be in place for the long term, because they're having to make very big, very expensive decisions about what machinery to invest in and what crops to focus on. So I hope that Andy Burnham will set out a clear and long-term plan that they can actually depend on, and stop with funding being pulled at very short notice.
Paloma Strelitz, is that right?
Yeah, it's not a local Gloucestershire name. The name Paloma was Picasso's daughter, and my parents had artistic aspirations for me. So that's where the name comes from. I'm also not Spanish. But let's move on to talk about...
But why, right, let's look at Patch here. Why have you come here? And let's look at your commitment to buy local and involve local
Yes.
firms?
So, well, thank you so much for being at Patch today. I'm the creative director and head of product of Patch as a whole. And for those of you who aren't yet familiar, and I know lots of you are, because there are lots of familiar faces, we're a B Corp, and our mission is to create opportunity for people, work, and community on every UK high street. So we're focused on creating absolutely fantastic places on high streets and town centres, focused beyond central London and bigger cities, where people can come together for work, community, cultural ideas, entrepreneurial connection. And we want to be the host space in the community where ambitious ideas happen and where a really broad church of people are included. So, like, it makes me so happy to see that events like this are happening here, where so many different people are coming together to talk about how to improve the local economy and to make it more resilient, more sustainable, more inclusive for everyone. So that's my starting point, and it's just brilliant to see so many people here.
What's your commitment then, Paloma, to local suppliers?
That's a good question. So the first thing is that we obviously identify spaces and transform them into these local spaces. At a fundamental level, this is about creating a kind of host space of opportunity. And from an everyday perspective, that starts by employing fantastic local teams to lead the spaces. So Laura, who I know many of you know, Laura Griffiths, runs a space. So she's the director of this space alongside Clive and Hetty. And so they are in the community every single day, creating connections, hosting people in, and being the kind of the connectors in the community on a daily basis. So it starts with fantastic local people and fantastic local jobs. And then alongside that, we obviously have, sorry, I'm not sure if everyone's familiar, we have a combination of publicly accessible meeting rooms and event spaces, and also co-working and private office spaces. So we want to be the hub where local businesses can come together, and part of that is about increasing visibility and confidence and opportunity, hopefully making it much easier to attract buyers into those businesses. Then at a local level, we just, part of the remit is to be building partnerships locally. Hopefully that's why you're all here today. And so whenever there is opportunity at a sort of hyper local scale, whether that's, local catering companies as one example that host our regular members' lunches, we are just always on the lookout. And really, that's not me, that's Laura who runs this space, for the everyday local opportunities to be working with local small businesses.
What about things like IT, where you might use a national company? Wouldn't you use someone locally, or try to?
I think that is a really good question, and that is probably one for my head of operations, because I'm not quite sure what the answer is. So I suspect we have, as all companies have, and I think actually does speak to the heart of some of the challenge of what we as Patch are trying to do. Our vision is to create a national company. But the way that we talk about that, because we also want to create places that are authentic to each place where they open. And Patch Gloucester is our sixth home. So it's our sixth and most recent home. The thing that we talk about, and I think this is interesting when you think about how you scale authentically, is that each of our spaces, so we're creating a family of spaces that are distinctive but share the same DNA. And part of our ongoing conversation as we scale, and as we scale as a B Corp, is to say, what do we always do that is locally relevant, and where is it does having shared systems or shared supplies make sense? And for example, this is kind of maybe a sort of slightly ad hoc example, but like we might have in one place identified a local supplier. So say from our first location, which is Chelmsford in Essex, like a local coffee roasting company. Now, actually, we identified them in that location, but they are now scaling with us as they grow. And so each place that we go to, we also try to identify some key local suppliers who can be part of our scaling journeys, which means that they're not just supplying in Chelmsford or in Gloucester, but as we go to 6 sites, 10 sites, 20 sites, they will be part of that journey with us.
Yeah. One last question. What's been your investment here, the total investment?
I suppose we had support from the council in terms of fitting out the spaces, obviously part of the forum development. So the council was a significant contributor to fitting out this space. And then beyond that, it's probably about £1 million.
Right. And the other point is that obviously this is Gloucester, but there's lots of people here from all over the county. How are you going to help them?
It's a really good question. I think one, and someone mentioned tourism earlier, which I thought was a really interesting point, which I hadn't thought about in relation to this discussion before. But one thing that I think that we can do here is be a welcoming host space. Now that is both at a hyper-local level, but also at a regional level, national level, hopefully international level. I think two practical examples are, one is that we've been working quite closely with Synam, who lots of you will be familiar with, and they have, of course, been Cheltenham-based for a long time. Their goal has been to engage more widely across Gloucestershire as a whole. We hosted the Tech Future Summit with them here earlier this year, and now they have their Gloucester home is now Patch. That means that we are becoming their kind of anchor space as they scale their activity. Regionally, that's a local organisation. Another example is that we're really interested in how we can attract national organisations to come to Patch for their kind of team away days or offsites. And I think that becomes a fantastic introduction into this region, into the ecosystem. And as the person kind of touched on earlier, the reason that we think that we can do that is because this is such an attractive place to come to. I've been having some of those conversations. So we had a really ambitious London-based AI company who brought the whole team here for their kind of annual team offsite. And the reason that they wanted to do that was because I was able to put together a vision where they could have a really brilliant time with their team. They could come to Patch for a few days of really focused strategic working sessions. They could stay at Hotel Indigo, which was just, obviously a new place, but made incredibly convenient and comfortable for them. And then I could say, and then on your kind of team fun day, go out into the Cotswolds and find a fantastic country pub and go for a walk together. And that's an exciting way to introduce people to this area and to start kind of building a relationship with the local ecosystem. So we are a front door for people to come in and to get to know the region.
Good point. Sir Geoffrey, same question again. Why does keeping more procurement spend within Gloucestershire matter right now? And we talked earlier about yesterday's decision. That's important, isn't it, in this context?
It's very important because I was thinking about it as you were asking the question to others. I suppose the total government or local government procurement would be in this county would be well over 50%. So what government procures and what local government procures really matters. And I'm hopeful that we MPs will lobby that new unitary authority when it's formed to make sure it really is business focused and make sure that they procure as much locally as possible, but also we make sure that health, fire, every other public body in Gloucestershire actually procures locally. And why does it matter so much? It matters because if we keep that procurement local, it means that our smaller businesses will then thrive. And what I am really, really keen on is that our youngsters leaving school have the opportunity to be given the best careers advice that they can so they know what they want to do, and then they get the correct route for qualifications. It might be apprenticeships, it might be universities, it might be something else. But there is nothing more disheartening than what we've got at the moment, which is really a combination of things that make it very difficult for youngsters to get jobs. Youth unemployment is up. Companies are, for one reason or other, partly because of taxation, it's more expensive to employ people. And unfortunately, whilst I think AI has a huge benefit to come, I think there will be some downsides in that some of the more entry repetitive type jobs will be done by AI. So I think it matters hugely that we keep this local procurement. And I've had the advantage of these sorts of groups. I've just had a really positive idea this morning. And it's this, the new road that I've been campaigning on for 15 years, A417. Kia, local company, got the contract, but where do they put their procurement? And although they have procured cement from Cheltenham. A lot of the other contracts in that contract are not Gloucestershire based. And I think that we ought to think about, in local and central government contracts, specifying an advisory, because it can't be the same for every contract, but an advisory how much local content should be in that contract.
Are you prepared to take that to government as well with your fellow MPs?
Absolutely. And I'm chairman of the Public Accounts Committee, one of the most important committees in the House of Commons. We've had a major inquiry into Sizewell. And one of my key questions to the team at Sizewell, a very good team, I think, at Sizewell, was how much local content are you going to put into this contract, particularly steel? Because steel, a lot of it is going out to France under the contract. Now, that is not helpful.
What about the Golden Valley as well?
Golden Valley is a huge opportunity for Gloucestershire. Lots and lots of small business can get involved in a huge range of both physical and service contracts in that development. And so I think it is a really big opportunity for Gloucestershire businesses, both large and small.
Great, that's brilliant. And talking about Golden Valley, Jack,
You teed me up.
yeah. Good segue. Good segue. Jack Kidder, tell us about what you do, Jack.
Good morning. So I work for HBD, Henry Boot Developments. We are the developer delivering Golden Valley alongside Cheltenham Borough Council. So it's an absolute privilege to be here this morning.
And in context of Together Gloucestershire, what commitment are you going to give to Adam and his team today about providing local firms with business?
It's a really clear commitment for me. So firstly, just to say that Together Gloucestershire is a really brilliant organisation and they don't exist everywhere. So you're lucky to have them. We've very much positioned Together as a key partner for our social value delivery. And I think, well, look, I'll say it to you, Adam, so you can hear me say it to you in person. I think there's two very, very clear commitments we're prepared to make. One is adopting a local first mindset. And that means if we can procure locally, we will procure locally. And that isn't just construction packages, that's everything from accommodation, security, clean, everything that goes with delivering a scheme like Golden Valley. I think the second is, though, that is just buying local isn't enough. You know, I've had the privilege over the last couple of years to meet some really amazing businesses across Cheltenham and wider Gloucestershire. And lots, like everywhere, lots of the businesses here are SMEs, and SMEs are under a lot of pressure at the moment. So if we can bring some support, whether that's upskilling, whether it's sharing resources, whether it's sharing ideas, we're absolutely dedicated to doing that. So we don't want Golden Valley to just be a doer. We want it to be a connector. The more we can support SMEs in this economy, the better, in my opinion.
Is that recorded?
Yeah, you've got it in right.
Just right. I mean, this is important, isn't it? Because you're at the ground floor here.
Correct.
We've just seen the first sod actually come into being. A lot of people have thought, well, we don't know a lot about this. This is supposed to be a huge commitment right by the side of GCHQ. What commitment can you give us in terms of how you're going to involve the community more?
Yeah, no, it's a really fair point. I think the challenge with the scheme, the scale of Golden Valley, is that it can take a long time from original idea and conception to then that spade hitting the ground. We have hit the ground with the spades now. We are absolutely determined to do two things. One is, firstly, is to make sure we're supporting those absolute adjacent communities in Cheltenham, and that's Hester's Way and Springbank, to make sure that if you're living with this on your doorstep, that actually you see firsthand how that's going to create opportunities for you, your family, your local businesses. But actually, it's not just a Cheltenham scheme, it's a Gloucestershire scheme, and actually it's a South West scheme. So we've got to make sure that the opportunities we're creating are for that whole region. Now, how are we going to do that? It's all about building meaningful local relationships, Ian, but it's also about being transparent. So one thing we're going to be doing in the coming next couple of months is publishing our social value commitments. We will make clear exactly what we've agreed with Cheltenham Council that we will deliver locally, and that will allow people locally to hold our feet to the fire and say, you've said you're going to do it, we want to see you do it.
Will local companies actually literally have a list of what we need?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're working with a really brilliant tier one contractor to deliver the first phase, Bowmer and Kirkland. And again, in negotiations with the council, and the council have been very clear and very ambitious on this, If we can procure locally, we procure locally. So that means going out and working with people like Together Gloucestershire, the Chambers of Commerce, but also the local colleges as well, to make sure we've got a really strong understanding of that local business landscape, that we do have the right doors to knock on when we want to purchase.
Now, we've had mentioned a similar scheme in Preston.
Yeah.
Have you seen other schemes like this?
Look, I think local procurement is often the forgotten bit of social value, but is actually one of the areas where it can create the most economic value for an area. I think there are examples of best practice across the UK, but I'm not just being glib when I say this, I do think you've got something quite special in Together Gloucestershire, in that it's a really cohesive message across this region, and it's a really quite direct route to market. So we're very, very pleased to have that kind of partner, because it makes our life a lot easier in accessing those local markets.
Yeah. Why do you think then there's been no real commitment from our councils to it?
Well, I gently disagree, in the sense that certainly in the conversations I have with Cheltenham Borough Council, this is brought up all the time, that if we aren't working well with local people, we failed. Because whilst Golden Valley might attract international and national investment and interest, the first audience and our absolute key priority is the people of Gloucestershire. So perhaps the messaging might not always get through, and we need to work harder on that, and we will always respond to that feedback. But believe me, it's an absolute priority for Cheltenham Council.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge development, isn't it?
It is.
Can you give people an idea of the time frame here and the money involved?
Well, we're literally just about to launch phase 1, which is where we're building 2 buildings: IDEA, which is the innovation centre, and Router, which is the transport hub, and that'll take place over the next 18 months. We're working with Together at the moment, actually, about kind of planning a series of Meet the Buyer events, which will start from the autumn, and it'll be a rolling programme. But what we're also keen to do is we don't just speak to local companies at events like this. Actually, that dialogue should be free-flowing. So that's in terms of working really closely with the Chamber, but also just being visible locally, making sure that we're going to have an on-site hub at the scheme. If people want to come and knock on the door and tell us what they do and how they can get involved, we welcome that.
Would you be able to give any sort of commitment to Adam and his team about working with them?
Well, we already are. I mean, we've signed up as a member of Together Gloucestershire, and that's something that we won't just that's not a tick box for us. It's not what we've done that now. I've had a lot of conversations over recent weeks with the directors here about making sure our relationship is really collaborative. And that doesn't just mean that it's them responding to our needs, it's them holding us to account, where if they see things we could be doing better, they will tell us.
Fine. Adam, you've heard quite a bit this morning of what people hope to do. What do you think of that? Do you think these sort of commitments are strong enough for you?
Thanks, Ian. Yeah, I think from a private sector side, we've been working with WSP, who have been absolutely brilliant, and Gary is engaged with us really, really well in terms of doing things like the Meet the Buyer events. I'm equally positive about HPD and the relationship with Jack. Again, it's like anything, it's always down to communication in relationships and actually building those, so that's really key. Public sector is difficult. Public sector, in terms of whether it's local or national, are hard to engage with, and I think that we're working with every borough and district council in the county to different engagement. So Forest of Dean and Cotswolds, and again, it might be because they're on the fringes of the county, have been really, really, really responsive to what we're doing. And with the devolution, time will tell what will happen. But with us, it's just about getting those connections. And funny enough, Together Gloucestershire is a collection of, started out with 4 local business owners to create it. We see ourselves like a small business because that's how we're run. We are generally suffering the same challenges of those small businesses working with those larger organisations, as in you get a connection and then they leave, or there's or there's a change of relationship or whatever it will be. So we're finding that really, really difficult. So yeah, private sector, when we can get engaged with them and find the right people like Gary and Jack, brilliant. Public sector, really difficult.
Yeah. What about sustainability? Because you started off, what, 4 years ago? You've got voluntary 4 people, including yourself. That can't work unless you get proper backing, can it? And I suppose one of the things that hopefully Jeffrey might be able to help us with is getting together MPs to look at that in terms of the new council.
Yeah, definitely. I think Gloucestershire's MPs should work together for the benefit of business. Yes, sorry. Gloucestershire's MPs should all work together with the new unitary authority for the benefit of business, and definitely and liaise with Gloucestershire together.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, in terms of sustainability, really, really good question. As I said, when we started this out, it was 4 business owners. We've all got day jobs. We're all trying to do this. 4 years on, we're still taking up a lot of our general time. We've built this. We spent invested so many hundreds of hours individually doing this. To create something which is, like Jack said, it is a game changer. And I don't think generally anybody's brought all the elements of what we've created in terms of the database, the educational awareness in all the bits. It's about empowering those and educate or upskilling those local businesses to work with larger organisations. Nobody, I think, has particularly done that or packaged it all up in the country. So we've shaped it and we built it, but it can't just be from us. We need to pass this on. This is for the county. And funding is an issue with that because, we're lucky enough that we've got Mike Cameron Davis who works on a strategy. So we've got a 3-year plan. It was never meant to be a talking shop, as it were. We've got goals and we've got a strategy of where we need to get to and an income there, so we are sustainable. We don't see this just being a one-off or, this is not a gift to Gloucestershire's business, but this is something which is there for the future and actually to empower it. So yeah, we do need a little bit of help with that, yeah.
So what do you actually need to survive now?
More engagement from everybody. So whether it's SMEs joining, we do have a subscription model because it's members, and there's a reason behind that. As in, we need to be sustainable and we need to keep servers going and all those kind of things. We completely tiered it. So if you're an SME, it's £20 a year. If you're a sole trader, it's a very, very small amount. So larger organizations is obviously more. So it's tiered across that. So, but it's engagement from SMEs, it's engagement from, again, the large organizations, local authority, national government, everybody. We're looking for people to ambassadors and actually champion what we're trying to do. It's, I feel like the 4 of us half the time are shouting in the wind, and sometimes it sticks. And we're gradually building momentum from the 4 years that we started, and it is building slightly slower than what I'd like it to be. But the one key thing with this is the passion from not just from the internal team, but externally, and the need for what we're doing has not changed, which is what keeps us going. And I think early on with the question, the Q&A with Sir Geoffrey and Alex earlier, there were so many things which were prevalent to Together Gloucestershire, about local procurement, about training, about training local workforce and all those kind of things, that we have the tools and the ability to do that. We just need the help from everybody, really.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
Oh, hi, my name is Ching Ling, one of the founding members of Together Gloucestershire. That's my passion lays. I just want to say exactly what Adam has said. We build this platform, we build community. Please use it or lose it.
I think that's the big question, isn't it? This isn't a threat or anything. It's just a damn good idea, and we need to pull together. And I think, as Jeffrey says, I think, with the one unitary, there's a better way perhaps of doing that in a concerted effort.
Well, we need to make sure from the outset that one of its aims is business centred.
Yeah.
It'll have an awful lot it needs to think about. We must collectively, and Adam's ideally placed for this, make sure that they are considering the needs of business.
Yeah. Richard, can I just sort of on that subject, another question here. How can procurement actually help Gloucestershire's skills and workforce challenges? We know we've got some big challenges and skills. You've got an area which relies on skills with your aerospace and specialist engineering. We've got a growing number of NEETs. You've got something of an influx of nearly 20,000 people in families over the next 10 years. How can you do this? So how can you help skills and the workforce challenges by local procurement?
I mean, that's quite a big question, and there's multiple aspects to that, but I think it starts with if you think Maslow's hierarchy of needs, it starts with the basics, doesn't it? So people need a home, and we live in a part of the world where housing is expensive, and that feeds through. That does matter to every business, because if your housing is expensive, then your employees are more expensive because they need to afford that expensive housing, right? So that's the starting point is, okay, affordable homes in the right location with the right infrastructure. That's the basics. And I know that's a stretch from skills and employment, but I think you just got to get that basic starting point, and that's something that we're being expected to do from government anyway. It's actually 40,000 homes across Cheltenham, Tewkesbury and Gloucester is the target. So that's your start. Okay, then your next level up is, okay, education. What are we doing for our young people in terms of the skills at school? Are our young people learning the skills that they need? Now, look at my son, and I love him dearly, but goodness me, his social skills of that COVID generation, the facial expressions have even gone because he doesn't need those because he's just looking at a screen. So, okay, I think we're going to have to start teaching in schools some of those basics around social skills and interaction. Maybe I need to do better as a parent, probably a bit distracted sometimes, but I think that's your next level is your schools, and it obviously then goes through to our colleges and our universities, and we've got a fantastic university here in Gloucestershire. We've got great college. It pains me a little that actually some of the jobs that we're creating in advanced engineering and manufacturing aren't necessarily being taught locally in our university. We are importing those skills in, but I've met with the uni. It isn't necessarily their specialism and their expertise, but they are working with universities around the country, and they are looking to fill those other supporting roles, in HR and all of those sorts of things that we also know we need. So I think it starts with that. I can feel that my time's wrapping up. Ian's ready to move to the next person, but
No.
we could probably... Oh, you're not? Okay, I'll keep going.
I'm going to ask you another question.
Go on, go for it.
So, yeah, skills. What are you actually doing, though, as a council about it? I mean, people talk... I attend loads of meetings where people talk about skills. Not much happens. What are you actually going to do about skills?
I mean, I think just to circle back, and I will answer the question, I promise, but the other challenge here is because we have some of those really big advanced engineering manufacturing companies, they actually hoover up a lot of our skilled workforce. And then we have some really amazing sort of engineering firms who actually struggle to recruit. So whereas nationally we've got this sort of youth unemployment crisis, I met with G10 recently who was struggling to recruit, and it's madness that we've got a fantastic success story locally who's struggling to recruit. So one of the things that we're doing is working with our businesses to say, okay, where are you struggling to recruit? What are your challenges, and what do you need? And then it goes back to us as a council. We can't give people those skills, but what we can do is work with our employers and work with our colleges and our schools to make sure that we're feeding or linking and bringing those organisations together. And that's something I'm really passionate about, and we absolutely have to do better at that, frankly, Ian.
Okay. Ros, can I just ask you the same question about procurement? How can it help the skills and the workforce challenges?
I'd really like to pick up on Richard's point about the house building. We know that the government has set this very ambitious housing target. We don't necessarily welcome that. In fact, Sir Geoffrey and I collaborated on a letter to the government to say that these targets are not really appropriate to the Cotswolds district. But it does present an opportunity. But I think this does need a national policy intervention to make sure that we build the right kinds of houses in the right places and developing skills as we go. I'd really like to see a decision in favour of small local house builders rather than the big national ones with their powerful lobbying groups that do seem to grab the lion's share of these housing allocations. And we know that they're mostly in it for profit and they're not particularly sympathetic to local needs and local landscapes. So I would really like to see a policy intervention that encourages those small house builders. There's a particular housing developer that I know quite well that specialises in building environmentally sustainable homes of high quality. And they're actually having to let people go at the moment, lay people off, because they're being crowded out by the big, aggressive, profitable house builders that aren't really, they'll be bringing in workers from outside of the county. So I'd really like to see a much more community-led approach to house building.
Yeah.
And also skills building.
Yeah. What about skills building in terms of local education, colleges and whatever? Are they, by and large, doing the right courses for the jobs available?
No, I don't think so. I think this is a national problem, really, and with absolutely no disrespect to teachers who I think have got one of the hardest jobs in the world. The way that the curriculum is set up at the moment is not so different from when I went to school many, many decades ago. And yet the world that we live in has changed radically. And you've already mentioned AI and the impact on those entry-level jobs. And I would like to see a much greater emphasis on practical vocations, the things that AI is not going to be able to do anytime soon, but that we desperately need, not just to provide good jobs for young people, but also for our national resilience. When Brexit happened, we lost a lot of our skilled builders, plumbers, electricians back to Poland and other parts of Europe. So we really do need to be nurturing and promoting those vocational practical courses, and to put them on a more, I hate to say this, but in many ways they're so much more important than the more academic subjects or the gentlemen's, if we're going to take the historical class context of this, those trades are really, really vital. And we do need to be respecting them and supporting them.
How can you do that? You've got an ear of government. How is that going to happen? Because I agree with you totally. Big issue.
Well, I'm a humble Lib Dem backbencher, but I do what I can from that position to address these issues with government ministers. And I hope that with the incoming regime, I don't know who's going to be the new education minister. It maybe looks a little bit unlikely to be Bridget Phillipson. And I imagine that whoever it is will have a fairly overflowing inbox. But I really hope that there will be an emphasis on localism, long-term thinking and sustainability.
In terms of business then, difficult question. What should be Andy Burnham's priorities from day one on business?
I think some people in the audience are recognising that's a fairly big question. And actually, I suspect there are many members of the audience who would be better placed to answer that than I am. I know for a lot of employers, the employers' national insurance contributions have been very painful. I know that the hospitality trade would love to see a bit more support there in terms of a reduction in VAT. There are some things that the last 2 years have done that actually have not been even remotely business friendly, even at the same time as supposedly supporting growth. So I would have thought that some of those things could be reversed. But like I said, I hope we get the chance to listen to the audience's views at some point in this discussion.
Happy to do that. Anyone, any views on that? Ruth Dooley.
Yes, I think there's a real easy win. The things you're talking about there, Rosa, are things that cost money, and they do all cost money. If you take away if you reverse the national insurance, it will cost government money. I think abolition of the triple lock is just a complete no-brainer. That would generate so much extra into the economy to be deployed elsewhere. So the MPs on the panel, please lobby for the abolition of the triple lock on pensions.
I think something that the government really could do would be to instill some sense of confidence and optimism about the future, because I think that may be one of the big reasons, just psychologically, why our economy is stagnating, because there's so much uncertainty and so much trepidation about the future. Very justified senses of fear and trepidation. So I think that if our new Prime Minister is able to instill a boost of energy so that entrepreneurs and small businesses actually feel more confident about facing the future, well-founded confidence, then I think that would go a long way. And unfortunately, that's something that the outgoing Prime Minister just wasn't able to communicate.
Yeah. Paloma, what about confidence for business? How do you increase that? And the original question about encouragement of skills, and because you've got a new business here, you're looking for new people. What are the sort of skills you need?
I think from how we run Patch, we have a fantastic team. So from that perspective, we're not on a skills hunt. But what we really want to be doing here is to be being a convening place and community for ambitious local businesses. I mean, actually, I was thinking of what is the connection between what you were talking about and in terms of housing and Patch. And one of our key phrases is that we want to promote a world where you can work near home. And that is about a vision of thriving neighborhoods where people can access the most fantastic work opportunities in the places where they've grown up, in the places where they're raising their families. So that's about having a mixture of brilliant local housing, local work opportunity, local opportunities for leisure, for well-being, all together. Like, that is my view of a thriving place. And we are kind of one part of that puzzle, and the part that we are best suited to and that we sort of serve the most is small business. It's a place to come together, whether you're a freelancer, whether you're a small team, whether you're a growing SME, and we're a place that can create the infrastructure and also the community to help you or your team work better, work more enjoyably, work more productively, work with greater confidence, be part of a more connected community. I mean, a lot that obviously connects to the work of Together Gloucestershire, and hopefully by being more visible. I mean, if you're talking about where a place, success for us would be like the companies and organisations based at Patch. Them growing is success for us. Like, that's what we want to see. We want to feel that you have had a better work experience, not by staying at home in isolation, working from your kitchen table, not having any social interaction. We want to see people coming back into their town centres, coming together, working together, collaborating together, and also feeling the rewards from that, both from a personal well-being perspective and also from an economic growth perspective. And just one other point, which is that we're sitting in a space that's called Patch Academy. And that's very deliberate, because the idea of Patch Academy was that it's a flexible studio space that can host a whole range of activities. Now, it can host conversations about regional investment. It can also host local business networking groups, like this space hosts business BNI regularly. Another thing that was part of it was about skills. So I grew up in North London. I used to have a local space where I could go to and do ceramics on a Saturday in the local art centre. And that relationship was really important to my own experience growing up. And we wanted Patch Academy to also be a place where a young person might go to their very first workshop on AI, or their very first public speaking or debating club. And so the idea is very much that this is a mixed use space and it's multi-generational, and we want to encourage lots of different people to be able to come in for lots and lots of different purposes.
Thank you. So Jeffrey, skills and workforce challenges, how procurement can help them?
Well, I don't want to repeat a lot of what I've already said. I think skills is absolutely critical to the growth of business in this county and elsewhere. And absolutely critical to that is to provide the right careers advice to our youngsters. After all, they haven't experienced the world of work. They don't necessarily know what they want to do. And I worry about the government just having put the careers service away from the Department for Education into the Department of Work and Pensions. I think that's a retrograde step. But I think all of us here in this room and elsewhere need to be thinking about how we can help career advice for our youngsters. I slightly disagree with you, Ian, if I may, gently. I do think in Gloucestershire we have some superb schools. We have some superb further education colleges. Rosses College in Cirencester is at the forefront of the country, and it was one of the first adopters of T-levels. And I think T-levels are a fantastic way of moving from the academic to the world of work and gaining skills. It's part skills in the college and part skills with employers. And I think that is a really good, useful pathway into work. So that's skills. The other thing is, I mean, on the more general front, I was sitting here thinking about the reason that both Adam and Ching Lin are so well informed in Gloucestershire Together is they don't just sit here in Gloucestershire, they go out into the world and see what's going on in the world. We cannot just sit here insularly, not knowing what's going on in the world, because we don't know what's going on in the world. We don't know what the potential is out there for exports or to encourage companies to come and invest in this country. So I think that's really important. I was also thinking about the government have, whether we like it or not, in Ros and my case, actually the excessive numbers of houses in the Cotswolds, I think is almost unsustainable. I think there are, and that's one of the advantages of the new unitary. We'll be able to have one planning department. We'll be able to work out where the houses in Gloucestershire should go for best advantage. And on that, I think we need a plan for Gloucestershire. And I don't quite know what happened here, and you might be able to inform the audience. GLOSCAT, Gloucester University, had a 25-year plan. And I don't know what happened to that, because we do need some blue skies thinking, because the world of business is going to be very different in 25 years' time to what it is today. And we need to be thinking about that. And again, another revelation to me today was meeting, I think, Tony, who told me that one of the main spines for the internet in this country runs just to the west of Barnwood. Now, that should give our businesses huge opportunities. If we have one of the fastest broadbands in the country in Gloucestershire, what an advantage we have. So I think there are a lot of blue skies thinking we can do. Let's not just sit here and think of today. What about tomorrow?
Yeah, I agree. I think skills, my hope is that the new unitary will embolden that operation to look at skills in a bigger way. I think, we have a skills board, but I think we need to do something more dynamic, and we've got to get out and we've got to talk to companies. And how many times have we said this, pairing off companies for apprentices, whatever, but there's only one solution to this. You've got to talk to people. You've got to talk to the companies, see what they actually want.
There's a really important thing on this skills. Unless we provide the opportunities in Gloucestershire, we'll find that some of our brightest and best and most innovative youngsters will leave Gloucestershire, and we want to keep them here in the county.
Totally. Yeah. Just, oh, sorry, madam.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm Michaela. I'm a social value consultant at a company called Samtala. And I just wanted to speak a little bit about what you just mentioned with skills and understanding what the businesses need, what those skills gaps are, and how we can embed that into education with young people. But I also think a really important part of that is thinking about that mobilisation. What is the support for young people in this county as well to get them into a place that they're actually in a space to be able to take on opportunities? And I think that some of that's missing. What are some of those youth services? Because a lot of them have kind of been cut. And so what support are we giving young people to mobilise them actually into work?
Yeah.
That's my question.
Richard, do you want to have a go at that?
Yeah, I mean,
What support are we giving young people to mobilise them and help them into work?
It's something I'm really passionate about. So my background before I became a councillor was that I was a foster carer, and I partly came into politics because I saw the cuts to children's services, which to me felt like complete short-termism. We're impacting young people's life chances, and then lo and behold, we're picking up the pieces when they come into adulthood. So the sooner we can get in there with that help and support, the better. And I think actually there are some really amazing youth services being funded across Gloucestershire, but they're really hard to access. And I actually think that if we made something as simple as bus travel more affordable and more consistent and much easier for whether you live in the Forest of Dean or you live in Tewkesbury or you live in Cotswolds, that you can actually get around and get easily to Cheltenham and Gloucester and all the other places and interconnect. Actually, our young people would massively benefit from that, because we're putting on these services and we're breaking ourselves to try and cover it across the whole county. And the reason we often have these huge holes is because something as simple as public transport's not up to scratch. So there's other things that need to be done too. But I just think actually sometimes when it comes to young people and skills, helping them to travel and get around would be a big help.
Thanks. Gentleman here.
Hi, Tom Waldron, County to County Property Group, local builder developers. Just wanted to pick up on something that you were talking about there in terms of the skills gap. We've been hosting individuals for work experience this week, and as a business, we only come across these individuals at the last minute, and they contact us through private network, through the rugby club, through friends of friends. It doesn't come from any structured introduction. And I think when I look back at the work experience I was fortunate enough to gain, and that we look at the work experience that we offer kids now, it is vital. But there is no connection for us in small business to be able to, that we're aware of, that there could well be, and I may be being unfair there, but we're not in a system that brings that forward. And that is vital for everyone in this room, that we are bringing kids on and giving them exposure and upskilling them.
Very, very good point.
I wonder if I could respond
Yeah.
to that. When I look at the nearly 1 million NEETs at the moment, these 16 to 24-year-olds not in employment, education or training, and the many contributing factors to that, like COVID and becoming more insular and turned inwards and not engaging with the world, I think you're really onto something with the work experience. I also have a lot of work experience people coming through my both constituency and Westminster offices. Yeah, so there does need to be, I would love to see some kind of a national programme, maybe even like a mini national service that's not military, but is a programme for youngsters before they go on to university, if they are going on to university, or at that age if they're coming out of full-time education, where they are offered that opportunity to do work experience for an extended period in a business or in councils or wherever, so that they actually get an experience of earning money, of being responsible, of showing up to work, and they get some confidence. It would need to be very well managed so that it's a confidence booster to actually show them what the world of work looks like, so that they can get out, so that their comfort zone starts to expand. Because I think after a certain period of time of unemployment, it becomes harder and harder to actually get into the workplace. So
always find out last minute. Can you take terms in a week's time?
yeah, it's just not nationally coordinated, or it's probably the youngsters who are most desperately in need of it, who don't have the parents who are going to give them that nudge to actually write the letter or make the phone call to make it happen. Yes,
provides a big.
that's already mentioned.
Sorry, I'm
Yeah.
from Cirencester College. I work with T-level students, and yeah, they have to do 315 hours of work experience. So it is really about local businesses opening their doors and hosting these students. So I work with a team who basically go out and coordinate those placements. So yeah.
So I'd love to hear from you then. Sorry, I'm sort of flipping it around here. The NEETs crisis, because it really is a crisis. How can we catch more of those that at the moment are somehow slipping through the cracks?
I suppose educating younger people right from the start about courses like the T-levels, because things like that, they're going to give them the work experience that helps their CVs for moving forward, and giving them that real experience.
Thank you, and thank you for the amazing work that you do.
Yeah. That's a very good point, and that seems a simple idea, doesn't it? But I've been trying to develop and help apprenticeships for quite a time in Gloucestershire. What you're saying doesn't happen properly, and it should do, and it needs work on it.
Sorry, Ian, can I just pick up just very quickly? So with Cirencester Chamber of Commerce, we have launched something called Beacon, which is working with the college and all the education around, purely for that, for actually foster that connection between education and business, whether it's going into T-levels or for work experience. So I'm sure, I'm guessing you're not based in Cirencester, Gloucester. I'm sure, again, it's probably worthwhile, having a chat, because again, we have those systems in place.
Emily could help there, couldn't you, Emily? Yeah, right. Lady there, and this gentleman.
Hi, my name's Lucy Martin. I work for DWP, and I just wanted to talk about the youth offer, given that we're talking a lot today about work experience, skills shortages. So we mustn't forget those folk that are already on universal credit, on our working age benefits, and the new youth offer that we have nationally, the youth grant that supports customers that have been unemployed for 6 months, and will give employers a £3,000 payment, and the apprenticeship offer. And in November, hopefully, we will in Gloucestershire also have the job guarantee. So any employers that would like to support our young people on universal credit, then the local job centres would snap your hands off in terms of offering work experience, training. I mean, there are now 6 routeways that the young people at the 13-week stage of unemployment, they have to accept one of 6 routeways. Apprenticeships is one of those, work experience is another, jobs, training, learning. So any employers out there, I urge you, please get in touch with your local job centres and offer those placements up for those young 16 to 24-year-olds.
Can I just ask this, Andy? Is that communicated clearly?
Well, I would hope so. That's gov.uk. You will find details of the jobs grant there. You can sign up as an employer to offer that. But then the easiest way and the local way would be to contact your local job centre. We've got recruitment specialists, well, actually recruitment consultants now, which is a little unfortunate because they become RCs. But they are the people in our offices that would support you to find the right person for your company and offer that young person a bit of opportunity to get back into the labour market.
Andy?
Thank you. My name is John Patient. I chair the Gloucestershire County Council Economic Strategy Scrutiny Committee. As such, one of the things I've been looking at is the fact we seem to have a skills shortage in Gloucestershire. A lot of employers are saying they're not able to find the skilled staff. I did some quick analysis on population. And in their 20s, the population of Gloucestershire is underrepresented. So a lot of people are actually leaving Gloucestershire probably after university and not coming back until their mid-30s, probably to take education from the excellent education system, coming back with their children. As such, we need to do something about, as we were saying earlier, about keeping young people here and providing an attractive offer for them. And what we don't do, our public transport system is basically used by people who don't have cars. It's not really fit for purpose. There are no real benefits to people from taking public transport, which is really not the way we should be going. The other thing we need to do is look at where people live. We have a lack of quality, affordable homes in Gloucestershire. And one of the things we could be doing, which we don't seem reluctant to do, is build more good flats. I spent a lot of my life living, well, not in the UK, in places where you actually had a good sized flat with a decent balcony, so you had outside space, you could have a meal outside. We don't do that kind of thing in the UK. And we're now getting the kind of climate that would be rather pleasant. Thank you.
Jeffrey, good points there, particularly about transport.
Transport, I mean, in the rural areas, in my area, is lamentable, but it's quite challenging because people want to go to different places at different times of the day. So I've always said, instead of running all these big buses about the place, we should have small minibuses, and they should almost be called for on demand. So I think there are all sorts of things that we could do in terms of public transport, particularly in the rural areas. If you take an area like the Forest of Dean or Cotswolds, if you're a lowly paid person working in the public sector, I won't say name anybody particularly, it's very difficult to afford a car. But you probably, if you're in one of those professions, live in Swindon or Gloucester, one of the lower housing areas, and so life is very difficult. So I just do think we could help our youngsters better, and John's quite right, by better transport.
Yeah, John, just Ruth to remember this as well. Remember some years ago getting involved in a thing called the 2050 project. What came out of that? The big thing that came out of it was that we were hemorrhaging young people at an alarming rate for the reasons you talked about. Now, you know, I think if you're scrutinising what the county council are doing, hopefully you'll scrutinise what the unitary authority is going to do. But I think that's one of our big challenges. Madam.
Good morning to all. I'm Dr. Devi Sundar, an integrative mind-body consultant, and I run the Mind-Body Synergy CIC in Gloucester. So my question goes to three members in this panel sitting right in front of us. One is to Jeffrey and to Jake and Adam. When you talk about the procurement of businesses in Gloucestershire, ours is a micro company, okay? And when I reached out to the council, it has actually been discounted because there's only one director and there's no grants. And our work focuses on creating mental health awareness in the chronic respiratory disease. And I have been lobbying for that mental health integration into chronic respiratory disease since 2024. And Alex, the Gloucester MP, just earlier in the morning he spoke, he was actually very supportive in tabling the question in the Parliament last July after me actually raising the petition and other things. He was so supportive. And the question table in the Parliament was, what was the government providing for the mental health challenges in chronic respiratory disease? And we got back an answer that NHS talking services, which is widely, I'm also very active in research. It's not actually attending the chronic respiratory disease particularly, and it's a generalized anxiety and depression. So it's, I hear a lot about talking about education. I was previously a lecturer in Cardiff University as well. There is a huge gap in the skills training of social value from the school level and mental health integration in the school level, both to the educators and to the pupils, like there. And also, when it comes to the healthcare sector, there is a lack of integration. And mental health has been played around like a well-being services in most places, and it is not given a greater importance. And my question here broadly is, this new government, like the new county council, having a unitary position, is there going to be a kind of a dedicated person who can screen the grants and contracts for micro company? Because we are seeing from the level of the company, people, physical resources, we are not seeing the social value when you are trying to provide the grants for those. And we are really struggling, and we need a oxygen mask we are hoping to provide, and we are a micro team of 3 people. So that's the question to three of you who be in a position, I believe, to answer this. Thank you.
Certainly Jack first, and then perhaps Jeffrey.
Great question, and I can't answer about the unitary authority, but what I can answer is from our perspective on Golden Valley, which is that local procurement isn't just about giving a handful of contracts to big local businesses. We've got a really clear commitment about supporting micro business, social enterprise, and the VCSE sector. And we need to give you confidence that actually you can access us. We will share our contact details. You need a very easy route in, not a complicated procurement process. I think the second thing is, look, we operate in an industry that's got a really challenging track record with poor mental health. So not only do we want to procure from local companies, we want to upskill them on mental resilience in workforces. And, construction sites are challenging places to be. So we need to prepare the students in the colleges and the universities that actually, what can they do to protect their resilience? Because a lot of the reason we've got kids dropping out of the education system isn't just lack of economic opportunity, it's poor health, poor mental health in particular. I think the other thing I'd say, just on the skills point, that's really important, is that we've got to be really aware, I think, in promoting work experience. And it was great to hear you say you take on local students. It is hard for SMEs, and we need to redefine work experience away from having a young person sat at a desk for 2 weeks. This is about creating a spark in young people in this part of the world, saying to them, you can stay near and go far. You don't have to get on a train to London or a train to Manchester or wherever it is to have a good job. But we've got to do that in schools. We've also got to do it where young people are. There's a brilliant organisation in Cheltenham called The Rock, and they go and work with young people wherever they are in the town. Careers experience shouldn't just sit in a classroom. It should sit wherever young people are operating.
Jeffrey?
Well, it's a great question. And the demographics are going to change in Gloucestershire. I can't just quite pull out of my head the figure, but the number of over 80-year-olds in the next 25 years, I think, is going to rise by well over a quarter, maybe a third. And they are going to need care. So one of the things I was very pleased to hear on the radio this morning is that the new Prime Minister hopefully is going to concentrate on the social care sector. And I've long thought we need to do this. And I'm quite happy to work on a cross-party basis to see how we can improve social care and indeed care in the health service and the employability in the health service. Give people decent conditions of work. Don't give them impossible work schedules. Don't make their hours of work so difficult that they don't want to do it and they'd rather go and work in Tesco than become a nurse in Gloucester Hospital. I think there's a lot more we can do. We need to think about people, think about youngsters, and then think about some of those skills that are going to be needed in the Golden Valley. I'm really in awe of what Cirencester College do and other institutions around Gloucestershire on these T-levels, because they're quite adaptable at providing those skills that are missing in Gloucestershire. So I think there's a whole skills gap, both in the public and private sector, we need to think about.
Richard, you know that sector well, don't you?
Yeah, I'm quite glad you brought me in. So I used to work in the care sector prior to all of the madness of being a councillor, and it's a sector that I think just really massively gets overlooked. And the people that work in it, they do a fantastic job, and it goes without saying, but we need to help and support that sector a lot more and not just see it as something that sort of takes care of itself, because actually it's about the skills. Yes, the demand's certainly taking care of itself, but the supply of skills isn't. And just to bring it back to procurement, because I know that's sort of the speciality of what we're talking about today, Gloucestershire County Council has the Your Circle site that has a list of care providers, but until relatively recently, it was all national large care providers. And I met with a care business in Tewkesbury Borough, Daffodil Care, who do a fantastic job, and Vicky's great. And she was a bit frustrated that actually the local care providers weren't on there. I'm pleased to say that's now changed. And it's things like that where actually, if we're signposting people to local care providers, that's got to be better, right, than just having a generic list of national care providers. And I think that again comes back to that local procurement. I could talk about care forever, so I'll probably hand over unless you want me to prattle on, but it's a really important sector and we need to do a lot more.
I just think what Jeffrey says is right. The figures are staggering, and being an old git myself, It is staggering.
We need people to look after us.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's social care is, in my view personally, one of the biggest that the government has got to really look at. And the point you make is really well made. And that is something that we can surely look at, sort out in the way that you've mentioned, in terms of looking at the lists and saying, well, are these local people, whatever?
I think sometimes as well, because we live in quite a cautious society, and so if a council's putting together a list of care providers and it can put together a national list, that somehow feels safer than vetting individual local firms.
Probably easier as well.
But bigger isn't always better, and actually, that the local, it's just around being smart about it and then not just doing what's easiest to tick a box, but actually thinking how can these tools be utilised to support local business.
Yeah, Ros, have you got any thoughts on that? That social care area.
This is less, well, I think social care probably needs to be reintegrated into the NHS so that you've actually got a joined up system. But the point that I wanted to make was kind of more about devolution, because there are going to be, each part of the UK has unique features. And so in looking at the incentives that are provided, if we do have a much greater emphasis on localism, if we can see in Gloucestershire that social care for the elderly is going to be a really big sector, then there could be ways of adjusting the financial incentives around that, recognising that money that goes into things like social care from a local council, it's not just dead money, it is going into the local economy. And just one other thing on that, one of my big concerns at the moment as we go through local government reorganisation is how much that's going to cost Gloucestershire County Council. The estimate is about £25 million and the government's only providing 900,000, which isn't going to touch the sides. And I'm really concerned about the impact of that on the statutory obligations like social care and SEND provision. So I'm sorry to end on a bit of a gloomy note, but it's maybe a symptom of how the systems need to be rewired seriously.
Hi everyone, my name is Viva O'Flynn. It's just, I think there's another group.
You're from?
Yes, I work for Gloucester City Council.
All right.
Yeah, it's just, I think there's another group of people that tend to get overlooked, and that's the homeless people. It's like when employers are looking for people to hire, it's usually like experienced people. But how about those people who have been left behind? I mean, how can we upskill them, get them back into work again?
No, looks like there's a lady who might have is it an answer or a question?
Well,
an answer, I thought, we brought in.
Let's deal with this lady.
Oh, no, it might be an answer. Is it an answer to her question? A suggestion?
No, I
Sorry.
yeah. Sorry, I will answer that question. That wasn't why I put my hand up, but I can answer actually that question. My name's Claire Mould. I'm co-CEO of Transfer and also the chair of the International Growth Council. But in immediate response to that question, a long time ago, I did actually run a charity for homeless young people in Stroud called Open House. And what we did was we actually we worked with schools to provide education as part of the charity as an interim, because a lot of young people who come through homelessness, they've struggled at school for a number of reasons, and that's broken down before they've got there. So it is looking at organisations like Patch and the Patch Academy that offer slightly different alternatives that aren't judgmental, that aren't quite so rigid as a normal school programme, that suit homeless people perfectly. And also it's a great opportunity to skill people up for the future, because you can offer new and exciting courses that really spark people that they can build in. So there are those opportunities. And then just while I've got the microphone, can I very quickly say, please also don't forget about, I met with the chair of the National Care Association, Nadra Ahmed, last week. And we were having a discussion of, we also mustn't forget about the vast amount of unpaid carers. And I know across Gloucestershire, there are a huge number of those. And that's relevant for here, not only because we need to acknowledge the great job, but from an economical perspective, more and more people are compromised and coming out and working part-time to prop up the unpaid care. And they're not getting, so it's hitting the economy both ways.
All right. Now, Does that help you at all?
Yeah, we need to find solutions for them. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
Could I add a little
So-
bit about Golden Valley, just because homelessness is quite a key focus for Henry Boot, where I work across the UK. And I think in immediate response, I think the challenge is sometimes businesses go straight to, do we need to create jobs? Is that the answer? And I think homelessness is such a complex challenge. Actually, sometimes it's about giving people that kind of aspiration again and work readiness and helping them rebuild to a place where perhaps they do go back into employment. But there's a lot of really innovative work going on across the UK at the moment about homelessness prevention. So we're really involved with the Homewards programme, which is Prince William's Foundation, to look at what work we can do with children in schools that are showing risk factors of becoming homeless or neat in the future, to make sure we're not having the same conversation in 10 years' time. So I think there's some great opportunity, to Claire's point as well, about being a bit innovative here and not just responding to today's challenge, but thinking about how we make it better for tomorrow.
One of the great supporters of people fallen on hard times is Timpson's, obviously. They take offenders. What a brilliant operation that is.
Can I just come in, Ian? So I think it's also just worth saying that homelessness, the street homelessness that we all see, but there's also a lot of hidden homelessness. And we think, so it comes back to young people again, actually, and young people are particularly vulnerable and at risk. And again, because we're in an area of such high house values, it's really difficult for young people to actually move out of home and get their first homes and rent with friends and all of that. So I think it is a complicated issue, and I don't think we're going to solve homelessness here and now. But I think I started the answer to the skills question about building housing and making sure that we've got enough housing in our area, and that's the key. It is also about those, where it's the street homelessness and those more complex cases, then obviously it's about making sure we've got really good wraparound support. Mental health's also come up. Many of these issues are interconnected, and it isn't about doing one thing, it's about doing all of those things together.
Thanks, Richard.
Hello, my name is Vashti Waite and I work for an organisation called Gloucester Culture Trust, and we deliver a programme called Together Gloucester, not the Shire. And one of our partners, I just thought it would be worth kind of sharing their story, which some of you may all know is Gloucester Gateway Trust. They run the service station based in Gloucester, and they've run a really amazing leadership model of running an organisation and a business not just for commercial gain. They invest in their local community. They train people, they work with local communities, they worked with the council hard and long to change procurement ways of doing things, and are now running 7 children and family centres across the county. So there are amazing success stories in the county. I just wanted to give a bit of positivity.
That's a brilliant story, isn't it? When the amount of money that goes out of the service centre into the local communities around Matson particularly, absolutely brilliant. 5% of turnover, is it? And of course, procurement, Adam, if you go there, I think they talk about 30 miles, something like that.
Which is exactly, again, with Together Gloucester, it's hard for it not to seem parochial, which I think is going to be an issue. So we had quite a large discussion about what is local. And I think, we sort of hit on the same thing, which is about 30 miles. And again, it's about, Gloucestershire is quite a big county, and it's, we do blur the county lines essentially, because it's not just about the procurement side, it is about the environmental side as well. So if you can find a supplier which, is out of the county lines and within with a shorter distance, then it certainly makes sense. And it is about that distance to deployment is really, really key. And hello to fellow Together Gloucester.
Yeah.
Ian, if I may, I just want to do another positive story, and it's about Future Sim, which I toured about 2 weeks ago at the University of Gloucestershire. Now, this is an immersive space where paramedics, I looked at a virtual patient, this body lying on a table, which could change from being a baby to being an old person to being a young pregnant woman. It was absolutely phenomenal. It's a bit of software, so has all the symptoms, and then of course they have to learn how to treat it. But it's a simulation centre, and they also put on every year a mass incident when they bring together the students from the paramedics, the custody suite, as if there was some major incident in Gloucester, and all the students work together in making learning, but in a very safe environment. And the whole point of Future Sim is about adapting courses and adapting what the university is providing for the future needs of the county. And a lot of those are practical and health service and custody suite, as I said, so police. And it's a really impressive, and if you haven't seen it, it's really worth going to see. I don't know whether you can get in there or not, but if you can, it's really worth it. So it is good to see things like that going on in the county, which are so valuable for our future businesses.
Yeah. Jeffrey.
Can I just say something on homeless? And I really want to back up something that Richard said right at the beginning of this session, and it's this. We are not building enough dwellings for young people. We need to build more one-bedroom flats and houses, instead of which, in the Cotswolds particularly, because the developers can make more money out of it, they build 4 and 5 and 6 bedroom executive houses, and that encourages people, rich people, to come in from outside the county. So we need to be providing for our young people more, and that inevitably is going to involve more subsidies somewhere along the line, because a lot of these youngsters are not going to be able to afford the mortgages, or not a complete mortgage, so they're going to need to have it subsidised, or indeed have their rent subsidised. So we need to think about this more, and I think your council, Richard, by building all these houses, is building some of that right mix of housing, and we need to think about it more, I think.
But I think also the theme of young people, the future, they're our future, aren't they? And all these things we're discussing today hinge on them, and I hope that the new unitary authority will take this on board. Do you think they will?
I think they're going to have to, because I think everyone that comes into politics or becomes councillors and everyone that works at council want to do the right thing. You do it for public service. So I'm sure that there's no lack of ambition or will. I did mean to say earlier when I spoke that family breakdowns are the #1 cause of youth homelessness. And one of the things that we did at Tewkesbury was did an intervention working with Night Stop to try and, again, help to support families so that they didn't have that breakdown and that their young people didn't end up homeless. And I think it does come to supply of getting the right mix of housing. It comes to social issues around mental health and around family breakdown. And I think the new authority's got a massive role to play in that. And eventually when we get a mayor, I'm sure the mayor will want to get involved in that too, because it's something that we all have a stake in, isn't it? If we get this right, then society's better for it. And if we get it wrong, then we're all the poorer for it. So yeah, I'm sure they will absolutely want to. It's just the doing, isn't it?
Ros, do you want to mention something?
Just to add a very brief note, that I know within Cotswold District Council, the average house price is 15.6 times the average salary.
Exactly.
So that's just a crazy affordability gap. And I think we can see in retrospect that selling off the council houses under Margaret Thatcher probably was a major misstep, because those houses just were not replaced by council houses that enabled so many young people to live independently, to move out from their parents' home, which I'm sure pleased both offspring and parents alike, and to start living independently, and to go out and get a job and start adulting. So I know that Lisa Spivey will be keen to do what she can within the financial constraints that they're facing, to start restoring that council housing stock.
Yeah.
Thank you. Just to add on one of the evidences which we conducted on the young people and mental health, I also run another one, teletherapies, which actually provides mental health awareness and therapy support for people with chronic respiratory disease and wider mental health. And last October, we collaborated with YouGov survey, and we conducted a nationwide survey on asking one simple question. is the public aware of the mental health challenges in people with chronic respiratory disease like COPD, asthma, and other things? What we got from that aggregate of the data, young people, the students about 18 plus and age of the 25 to 40, they are not aware of mental health challenges at all, although it has been clearly specified anxiety and depression that persist in chronic respiratory disease. That's 46% of them is not aware. And overall UK, there is 69% of lack of awareness on mental challenges in chronic respiratory disease. My background as an integrated mind-body consultant, as I introduced myself, I'm also a respiratory physiotherapist and a psychotherapist, and I worked in NHS and HSC in Dublin and other things. But the survey we conducted last year, we have been propagating on mental health. The government is investing a large amount of money in actually eradicating the mental health challenges and other things. But if the public is not aware of, especially the young, we are talking about the economic workforce of future, is not aware of mental health challenges. And we are also talking about retaining the young people in Gloucestershire and skills training. And I think that we have to, some way along the systems, we have to rethink the model, what we're offering in our community.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions before I ask? Right.
Yeah, just going back to procurement and looking at spend with SMEs, there's two sides to this. Especially in PPN 002, we're looking at the accessibility for SMEs and actually how can they get on these frameworks and how can they procure, but also looking at some of the, going to like Together Gloucestershire and looking at those larger businesses and looking at using SMEs in their supply chain. How are we ensuring that we look at the accessibility? Because sometimes there's quite a lot of barriers and requirements required of these businesses, but because they're micro businesses or they're SMEs, sometimes they don't have some of these certifications that they need in place. So how do we overcome some of that so that these SMEs and micro SMEs can actually get involved with this work?
Yeah, Adam? I think this is a major point. I talked to someone this week, a major company, and they don't do any local procurement. This is one of our big companies. So what you're saying is absolutely right. And recently I was talking to an engineering firm in the Forest. They do work for a Formula One team. And when they talked to a large company in Gloucestershire, no one rang them back. And this is a very specialist firm. So what you're saying is right.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point actually, and I think that, and I'll probably pass on to Jack actually, because I think that with HBD, I think they'll have an opinion on this. But right from we've had the ability with, because Together Gloucestershire is 4 years old, we've had a lot of talking which has been going on again with large organisations. So within our team we had St James's Place and Renishaw, so it was their heads of procurement. So we were understanding a lot more what is, they're very different procurement systems of what they will use, which is sort of why we've started the education program. And again, with the educational awareness, because again, with public sector brings in a whole different level. So I think definitely the wanting to work with local businesses is key. Obviously, by us helping and keeping those conversations with the larger organisations to understand what it is that they require, and then be able to help those local businesses hit it. But again, things like whether it's certification or any of those kind of things, which is really important. But the other thing, when we were speaking from a public sector point of view, is a lot of Publica was certainly quite happy for collaborations and to work with smaller businesses. So as long as there was a lead organisation, that they were quite happy for, collaborations of smaller businesses that would work. So yeah, really good question. And tendering, again, it's something which is really important. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. Lady at the back there.
Hello, my name is Harshita. I'm a student at the University of Bristol, currently working with Together Gloucestershire for my AP project. So, as we just heard, the major problem with SMEs are not their visibility or how good they are, but the capability or the visibility where they can build with the larger organizations. As the government or like local partnerships like TG, how can they build the bridge between both of them? Is my question.
Perhaps now I can get my brain into gear. I think we need to do more. I mean, I think it was Adam was saying there. I think it's pretty shocking that, I mean, even you, Ian, was saying that you approached a big firm and they hadn't even thought about procuring locally. I think that is absolutely shocking. And I think we've got to think of ways between us all how we can get at those firms, you know, the bigger ones. And certainly when I make a visit, and I do have one or two very big firms in my patch in the sort of Tewkesbury and Stroud bit, talk to them about local procurement, because I think that's really, really important. And anything more any of us can do, I think that's really probably the most important thing that could come out of this conference today.
Yeah.
Can I come in on that one, Ian, just really quickly, which is just to say, hopefully in response to both questions there, procurement's never going to be one size fits all. So particularly on a large infrastructure project, there will be certain packages that have such specialist skills required that there does have to be kind of extra requirements. But I think it's just about using a bit of common sense, put a bit of common sense back in the process, which is if we've got certain requirements, let's tell people what they are and why. And if we don't need to ask for things, let's not ask for them. And I think giving local businesses and supply chains visibility of who we are, not just an email address, a face, a name, to say, if you want to find out, you pick up the phone and you ring. And the way you do that is you have transparency in your communications, but you also do things like the Meet the Buyer events where actually you do sit in a room like this, people can come and talk to you and they can come and say to you face to face, how can I get involved in your project? And I think bringing that personal relationship back is critical.
Yeah, thanks, Jack. Gentleman there.
My name is Maninder. I'm from University of Bristol studying my master's, and I'm working with Together Gloucestershire on my project right now. So my question is, the UK government has consistently emphasized supporting SMEs through public procurement, and yet many SMEs still struggle to access the large contracts. What policy change in procurement can make the greatest impact for SMEs to acquire and access more large contracts?
Adam?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, again, probably one for Roslyn Sir Jeffrey. But I know the MOD have recently been instructed to actually work more with SMEs. Funnily enough, bringing it back to Gloucestershire, we've got quite a large project which is happening at the barracks in Cirencester with the cyber centre. So that is, I think, it's something like a £250 million project. Again, it's an MOD led, so it's us in Gloucestershire. It's going to be, developed within the county borders, but understanding what is that procurement process for that is really, is difficult from our point of view. And I appreciate, because it's MOD, it might be a little bit harder, but surely, certainly from this, there seems to be things which are happening within from a national level about local procurement. Definitely, I think it could probably be improved. We've got the public sector, which are instructed to actually buy local a little bit more. But I think there's certainly a bit more that can be done from government.
Thanks, Adam. We're going to bring things to a close fairly soon.
Can I just briefly add something
Sorry,
on
Ross. Didn't see you.
Something that they found helpful in Preston, the Preston model that I referred to earlier, was to take those potentially very big complex contracts and to break them down into smaller ones, into these smaller packets. Because if you're looking for one supplier, like a one-stop shop, to supply all of those things, that's going to favour the big boys. But if you break it down into the smaller pieces, then you make it more accessible for SMEs to make a bid. So there could be some policy requirement for that. And I know it sounds really complex, and why would anybody want to have to deal with 20 companies when they could just deal with one? But we do now have tech platforms that could make that so much simpler. And now that you can get AI to draft contracts, at least a first draft, I think technology could really support that.
Thanks, Ros. Sorry, Jeffrey.
A really important point that hasn't been mentioned today at all. Most small companies are very tight for cash. The government has tightened up the rules of paying small businesses within 60 days. We should do more to encourage the private sector to do the same, maybe even a little bit more money up front if it involved a considerable capital investment.
Last word from yourselves.
Thanks. Well, I was just going to say, really, there's an imperative to do it, and we saw it not least with Middle East conflict, and we saw it with COVID, that actually those really long supply chains are absolutely great until something goes wrong. And so I think there's certainly a strong argument to be made there. There's obviously the moral argument that it's good for local people and local community. And I think Ros's suggestion and the suggestion of Geoffrey Clifton Brown around making it quicker for people to get paid and breaking those contracts down, all of those things together, I think would absolutely help. So I think that's probably summed it up pretty well.
Ros, one last word from you.
Go Gloucestershire.
Paloma.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks to everyone coming, and there's just obviously so many ideas and opportunities that have been surfaced today, and if people are looking for ways to develop a new idea, to experiment a new format of bringing people together, whether it's a alternative form of careers fair, a skills workshop, a platform for talking about social care in the community, please see Patch as a host space, reach out to me, or I'll introduce you to the team who run this space, and we'll do our very best to help make it happen.
Thanks for that, Geoffrey.
We haven't talked at all about the role of local government and national government. Very briefly, what can they both do to help business? Firstly, they can get the taxation system right. And the second thing they can do is to get the regulation system right. I end where I started this morning. It's not acceptable to take a year or more to get a planning permission. It's not acceptable to take several years to get a grid connection. We need to get these things right.
Yeah. Thanks, Geoffrey. Jack?
Just to say, we've rightly talked a lot about challenges, but I want to finish on a note of confidence, which is that you've got the rest of the country and internationally looking at this area now as an area of excellence, innovation, forward thinking. We need to build in that confidence. I think hold your heads high, because there's some real pride to be had. So whilst there will always be challenges, now's the time to be confident.
Thanks. Adam, last word from you.
Yeah, thank you. I think Gloucester is on a cusp of a huge amount of change and opportunity and investment. So I think we need to be able to grasp it, put all these kind of solutions in place where we can. Purely from a Together Gloucestershire point of view, please, we spent a long time building this together. We need everybody's support to actually carry on with it, because it is a use it or lose it, essentially.
What I think is that we can now go away and hopefully, with Sir Geoffrey's help and our MP's help, literally talk to government about this, Sir Geoffrey, put something really down. Soon as Burnham gets back, we'll be watching you. But seriously, I think, Adam and his team have done a great job, but are they going to survive? If we don't help them, they probably won't. And that's not good. And there's been great comment today across a wide area that is nothing doubt the subject of the meeting, but I think it shows what great ideas you've already got. And just like to thank everyone. Thank Pete Allison as well for putting this on. This is the sort of thing that's lacking these days in terms of local media, and they've done a great job to put all this on. And thank the panelists, please, will you?